Picture this, you lot, it's 1858, and London, the so-called pride of the British Empire, is gagging on a stench so foul it could make a buzzard barf. The River Thames, meant to be the city's lifeblood, is now a steaming, open sewer, a brown sludge of human crap, dead animals, and rot so vile it could choke a demon. This is the Great Stink, and it's turning the capital into a city-sized sick bag. I'm here to drag you through the muck of Victorian London, serving history like a dodgy kebab at 3 a.m. raw, unfiltered, with a side of sarcasm and a few well-placed fucks for good measure. Grab a pint, brace your nose, and let's wade into this reeking hell, guys. London in the 1850s ain't the polished postcard you know today, with its Big Ben selfies and overpriced lattes. This is a beast of a city, bloated with over 2 million people. The Industrial Revolution's roaring, and folks are flooding in from the countryside, chasing jobs in factories that spew black smoke like they're auditioning for a Dickens novel. The streets are a circus of chaos, horse-drawn carts sloshing through mud, hawkers shouting, kids dodging piles of horse shit, because yeah, even the roads are a crapfest. From the toffs in their Kensington mansions to the rag pickers in Whitechapel's slums, everyone's packed in tight, and everyone's shitting and pissing like there's no tomorrow. But where's all that waste going? Straight into the Thames, guys. The river that's supposed to keep London alive is now a floating graveyard of turds, bloated carcasses, and industrial sludge. Let's throw you into the thick of it. You're a Londoner in 1858, waking up in a damp, creaky room in some East End tenement. The air's already thick with coal smoke, stinging your eyes like a cheap whiskey hangover. You stumble out of bed, pull on your patched-up trousers, and step outside, hoping for a breath of fresh air. Big fucking mistake, bam. It's like someone's rammed a rotten fish up your nose and set it ablaze. Your throat burns, your stomach lurches, and you're gagging before you've even had your morning tea. What the hell is this shit? You mutter, clutching a rag to your face. That's the Great Stink, guys, and it's about to make your life a waking nightmare. So how did London end up drowning in its own filth? Let's peel back the layers of this rancid mess. Back in medieval times, the city was a small fry, and people used cesspits, big holes in the ground for your night soil. Fancy way of saying shit, right? These pits were emptied by night soil men, poor bastards who shoveled crap at midnight and carted it off to the countryside. It worked when London was a glorified village, but by the 1800s, the city's a monster. The population's doubled, then doubled again, and those cesspits are overflowing faster than a pub toilet during a footy match. By the 1850s, they're not just full, they're leaking, seeping into cellars, wells, and streets, turning backyards into swamps of pure nastiness. Then comes the flushing toilet, hailed as the savior of sanitation. Some posh git Sir John Harrington or whoever's claiming the glory gets a pat on the back, and by now, water closets are popping up in middle-class homes like mushrooms in a damp cellar. Flush and forget, they say progress at last, except it's a total cock-up. The sewers these loos empty into were built centuries ago for rainwater, not a tsunami of human waste. So all that shit plus piss, blood from slaughterhouses, chemicals from tanneries, and whatever the breweries are dumping gets funneled straight into the Thames. The river's a toxic soup now, a festering brew of everything London wants to sweep under the rug. And in summer of 1858, with the mercury hitting 30 degrees Celsius 90 Fahrenheit for you Yanks, that soup's boiling over. The Thames is low, exposing slimy mudflats caked with layers of decomposing crap. It's not just a smell, it's a full-on assault. Imagine a stench so vile it's like diving into a bin of week-old curry, dead rats, and a splash of vomit. Flies are swarming, rats are feasting like it's a five-star buffet, and the riverbanks look like the set of a nightmare. Could you handle that, guys? Most of you would be heaving your guts out faster than a lightweight on cheap vodka. The air's so thick it's practically a solid, clinging to your clothes, your skin, your bloody soul. Let's say you're a cabbie, rattling over London Bridge in your hackney carriage, dodging horse manure piles, because why not add more shit to this shitshow? Below, the Thames is a sluggish, brown nightmare with chunks of unnameable muck floating by. A dead dog bobs past, its fur matted with sludge, and you try not to look, but the stench is burning your lungs. Some toff in a top hat's yelling at you to hurry up, but you snap back, hurry, in this fucking hell. He's a lawyer, probably headed to court, but even the courts are shutting down. Judges can't think through the fog of filth. That dog's image is burned into your brain, right next to the smell, and you're wondering if you'll ever breathe clean air again. Or maybe you're a washerwoman, knee-deep in the Thames' greasy water, scrubbing linens for some rich family in Mayfair. The river's so foul it's eating through the fabric, leaving a film on your hands that no soap can shift. You're gagging with every breath, your stomach churning, but you can't stop, rents due, and your kids need to eat. The irony's a punch in the gut. The clothes come out dirtier than they went in, stained with the river's toxic brew. You curse the city, the Thames, and every bastard flushing their waste into your workplace. Fix this shit, you mutter, but nobody's listening, guys. The newspapers are loving it, though. You nick a copy of Punch from a stall, and they're calling it the monster nuisance, with cartoons of Father Thames as a skeletal grim reaper rising from the muck. The Times is screaming about pestilential exhalations that could kill us all. You're nodding along because it feels like the apocalypse. Even Queen Victoria tries a boat ride on the Thames for some royal PR. 2 minutes in, she's green as a lime, waving her fan like it'll save her, then ordering her rowers back to shore. If Her Majesty's gagging, you know it's bad, guys, but it's not just the smell, it's a killer. The Thames is a breeding ground for cholera and typhoid, spread through contaminated water. You've heard about Jon Snow, not the Game of Thrones one, who proved in 1854 that cholera comes from bad water. Did the bigwigs listen? Fuck no. They're too busy blaming the poor for being dirty, like it's their fault the city's a sewer. It's like modern-day politicians ignoring a wildfire while posting selfies. Total dickhead move. Thousands are dying, especially in the slums, where people drink from wells next to leaking cesspits. You pass one, the water cloudy and rank, and you keep walking because you've heard the stories. Whole families gone in days, kids dead from a single sip. You're a market trader now, flogging apples near Covent Garden. Nobody's buying, the stench has killed appetites. You're shouting, fresh fruit. But the air's so foul your apples smell like sewage. A customer stumbles up, looking like he's about to pass out. You all right, guys? You ask, but he just mutters about the foul air and shuffles off. The great stink's got London in a chokehold, and you're wondering if the city's done for. But hold on, this is just the start. The toffs in Parliament are about to get a whiff, and that's when shit gets real. Stick with me, guys, we're diving deeper into the muck. You're a Londoner in the summer of 1858, guys, and the great stink has turned your city into a steaming pit of misery. The River Thames, once the pride of the empire, is now a sluggish, brown sewer pumping out a stench that could knock a horse flat. You're just trying to get through the day, earn a few bob, maybe grab a pint. But the smell's got you by the throat, and it's not letting go. This is history served raw, like a punch you didn't see coming, full of filth and a few choice fucks to keep it real. Let's hit the streets and feel the full rancid weight of this shit show. Picture yourself trudging through London's crowded lanes, the cobbles slick with God knows what. The air's so thick with the Thames stench, it's like breathing through a sock soaked in a cesspit. Your eyes are streaming, your nose is staging a full-on revolt, and every step feels like wading through a cloud of death. This isn't just a smell, it's an invasion, seeping into your clothes, your skin, your bloody soul. Could you hack it, guys? Most of you would be heaving your guts out faster than a drunk on cheap gin, but for us 1858 Londoners, this is just another day in hell. Let's say you're a cabbie, rattling across London Bridge in your hackney carriage, dodging piles of horse manure, because yeah, why not pile more shit on this shit show? Below you, the Thames is a nightmare of brown sludge, chunks of unidentifiable muck bobbing past like grim souvenirs. Maybe it's a dead cat, maybe it's something worse. You don't look too closely because you're too busy trying not to puke. The mud flats along the banks are glistening with slime, bubbling under the scorching sun like a witch's cauldron gone wrong. The stench hits like a brick to the face, sulfur, rotten eggs, dead fish, with a top note of pure despair. Imagine the worst festival portaloo you've ever braved, then multiply it by 1,000. That's the Thames right now, guys, and it's making your life a living nightmare. You pull over for a fare, some toff in a top hat barking at you to hurry up. Hurry, in this fucking stink, you snap, wiping sweat and tears from your face. He's a lawyer, probably headed to the courts, but even they're shutting down because judges can't think straight through the fog of filth. You glance at the river again, and there's a bloated dog floating by, its fur matted with sludge. The image burns into your brain, right next to the smell, and you're wondering how much more of this you can take. You're not just fighting the stench, you're fighting to keep your sanity in a city that's choking on its own waste. Or maybe you're a washerwoman, down by the riverbank, knee-deep in the Thames' greasy, slimy water. Your job's to scrub linens for some rich family in Mayfair, but the river's so foul it's eating through the fabric faster than you can wash it. The water leaves a film on your hands, like oil mixed with death, and no amount of soap can shift it. You're gagging with every breath, your stomach lurching, but you can't stop. Rents due, and your kids are hungry. The irony's a kick in the teeth. The clothes come out dirtier than they went in, stained with the river's toxic brew. You curse the city, the Thames, and every bastard flushing their waste into your workplace. Fix this shit, you mutter, but nobody's listening, guys, not the ones who matter. The streets are a circus of misery. Everywhere you look, people are struggling. Ladies in their fancy dresses are fainting left and right, collapsing into the arms of horrified footmen who are just as green in the face. Blokes are retching into the gutters, their breakfasts adding to the city's growing pile of filth. Kids, poor little buggers, are still playing by the river, splashing in what they think is muddy water but is actually a breeding ground for cholera. You shout at them to get away, but they just laugh, oblivious to the fact they're wading in death. You see a boy, maybe 10, fishing with a stick, pulling up something slimy and unrecognizable. "Oi, drop it," you yell, but he's poking it like it's a bloody science experiment, and your heart sinks. Even the posh lot aren't spared, and that's where it gets juicy. Parliament's right on the riverbank, all Gothic spires and self-important swagger, but the great stink doesn't give a toss about your title or your top hat. Those wankers in Westminster are trying to debate laws, but the smell's seeping through the windows, making their eyes water and their stomachs churn. They tried soaking the curtains in lime chloride, some fancy chemical supposed to kill the stench, but all it does is make the place reek like a public loo after a bleach bomb. Picture it: MPs in their tailcoats, clutching scented handkerchiefs like they're at a bloody opera, but no amount of lavender's saving them from this. Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, that curly-haired git with a flair for drama, stands up to speak but ends up choking on his own words. He calls the Thames a Stygian pool reeking with ineffable and unbearable horror. Ineffable. Bollocks, Bennett's just a river of shit, and you lot let it get this bad. You're outside Parliament now, maybe sweeping the streets or delivering papers to some MP's office. You can't help but smirk as you see these toffs clutching their silk cloths, their faces greener than a lime cordial. "Welcome to our world, guys," you mutter under your breath. For once, the rich are suffering just like the rest of us, and it's almost worth the stench to see them squirm. You overhear clerks gossiping about Disraeli storming out of a session, muttering about the pestilential fog. You laugh, but it's a bitter one. Where was all this outrage when the slums were drowning in this crap? The newspapers are eating this up, and you're loving it. You nick a copy of Punch from a newsboy, and they're calling the Thames the monster nuisance, with cartoons of Father Thames as a skeletal grim reaper, rising from the muck to choke the city. The Illustrated London News is banging on about pestilential exhalations threatening to kill us all, and you're nodding along because it feels like the end of days. You're at a pub near the river, trying to down a pint, but the smell's so bad it's curdling the ale. The landlord's muttering about business being down, and you can't blame him. Who wants to drink when the air tastes like arse? You glance at the Thames outside, where a dead sheep's floating by, its wool clumped with muck. The flies are a black cloud, buzzing like a warning siren. It's not just Parliament feeling the heat, everyone's suffering. You're back on the streets, maybe a market trader now, flogging apples in a square near Covent Garden. Nobody's buying because the stench has killed appetite stone dead. You're shouting, "Fresh fruit, best in London." But it's a lie, the air's so foul your apples are starting to taste like sewage. A customer stumbles up, looking like he's about to keel over. "You all right, guys?" you ask, but he just mutters about the foul air and shuffles off. You see a kid playing near a drain, poking at something slimy with a stick. "Oi, get away from that," you yell, but he's already running off, laughing, oblivious to the cholera lurking in every drop. The real sting. This isn't just about the smell, it's a death sentence. Cholera's tearing through the city, especially in the slums where people drink from wells next to leaking cesspits. You've seen the bodies carted off, the funerals clogging the streets. Jon Snow, that doctor who's not from Game of Thrones, proved years ago that cholera's in the water, but the bigwigs are still banging on about miasmabed air causing disease. You're no scientist, but you know this stench is killing people, one breath at a time. The great stink's got London on its knees, guys, but the toffs in Parliament are about to wake up. Stick around, this is where shit gets real. You're still a Londoner in the summer of 1858, guys, and the great stink has got the city by the throat. The River Thames is a festering sewer, pumping out a stench that could drop a bowl, and you're just trying to make it through another day without losing your breakfast. But how the hell did London end up drowning in its own crap? Let's peel back the layers of this stinking shit cake and figure out why the city's choking on its own filth. This is history served raw, like a punch to the gut, full of filth and a few choice fucks to keep it real. Buckle up, because we're diving into the rotten roots of this mess. You're trudging through the streets, the air so thick with the Thames stench it's like breathing through a cloth dipped in a cesspit. Maybe you're a market trader, shouting about your apples to a crowd too nauseous to buy, or a docker hauling crates off a ship stuck in the river's sludge. Either way, you're cursing the city with every breath, the smell burning your lungs like a bad curry. To understand this clusterfuck, we need to go way back to when London was a smaller, simpler place. Think medieval times, when the city was just a few thousand souls huddled along the Thames. Back then, you did your business in a cesspit, a big hole in the ground for your night soil. Fancy term for shit, right? These pits were emptied by night soil men, poor sods with the worst job in history, shoveling crap at midnight and carting it off to the countryside. Grim, but it worked when London was a village pretending to be a city. Fast forward to the 1800s and everything's gone to hell. The Industrial Revolution's kicked in, and London's growing like a dodgy influencer's follower count. By 1858, there's over 2 million of us crammed into this smog-choked sprawl, and those cesspits. They're about as useful as a paper teapot. The population's doubled, then doubled again, and the infrastructure's stuck in the bloody dark ages. Those pits are overflowing faster than a pub bog on half-price pint night, leaking into cellars, wells, and even the streets. You're walking through Whitechapel maybe, and you step in a puddle that's not water, it's the neighbor's cesspit seeping up through the cobbles. "Fucking hell," you mutter, shaking your boot, but it's no use. The stink's everywhere, guys, and it's only getting worse. Then comes the flushing toilet, the so-called hero of hygiene. Some posh git, Sir John Harrington or whoever's claiming the credit, pats himself on the back, and by the 1850s, water closets are popping up in middle-class homes like mushrooms after a storm. Flush and forget, they say civilization at last, except it's a total balls up. Sewers these fancy loos empty into were built centuries ago for rainwater, not a daily tsunami of human waste. So all that shit plus piss, blood from slaughterhouses, chemicals from tanneries, and whatever the breweries are chucking out gets funneled straight into the Thames. The river's not a river anymore. It's a liquid landfill, a toxic stew of everything London wants to forget. You're down by the docks, watching a ship unload, and you see the water brown, greasy, with chunks of unnameable muck floating by. You gag, but there's no escaping it, guys. Now, let's talk about the weather, because Mother Nature decided to crank up the misery in 1858. That summer's a scorcher temperatures hitting 30 degrees Celsius, which is 90 Fahrenheit for you Yanks, hotter than a curry fart in a lift. The Thames is running low, exposing these rancid mudflats along the banks. Picture it, layers of decomposing shit, dead animals, and industrial waste, all baking under the sun like a toxic lasagna. The smell's so bad it's practically a solid you could carve it up and sell it as despair pie. Flies are swarming, buzzing like they're auditioning for a horror flick. Rats are scurrying about, fat and happy, treating the riverbank like a Michelin-starred buffet. You're trying to cross London Bridge, and the stench hits you like a brick sulfur, sour milk, rotting fish, with a dash of vomit for good measure. Could you handle that, guys? Most of you would be on your knees, heaving, but for us it's just another day in this stinking hell. Let's say you're a seamstress now, hunched over your needle in a cramped room in Spitalfields. The window's open because it's too damn hot, but all that does is let the stink in. Your thread's starting to smell like the Thames, and every stitch feels like a battle. You're coughing, your eyes streaming, and you're wondering if you'll ever smell anything clean again. Down the street, a butcher's trying to sell meat, but the flies are having a field day, and customers are running away gagging. You hear a kid shouting, playing near the river, and you want to scream at him to stay away. But what's the point? The whole city's a death trap, and you're all stuck in it. The real kicker, this isn't just a bad smell, it's a killer. The Thames is a breeding ground for cholera and typhoid, diseases that spread through contaminated water. You've heard the horror stories, entire families wiped out in days, kids dead from a single sip of bad water. A few years back in 1854, a doctor named Jon Snow, not the Game of Thrones one, proved cholera comes from bad water. He's out there mapping deaths, pointing at pumps, shouting about sanitation, but do the powers that be listen? Fuck no. They're too busy arguing over budgets and blaming the poor for being unclean. It's like modern politicians ignoring a flood while posting about their new tax cuts. Total dickhead move, guys. The slums are hit hardest, where people have no choice but to drink from wells next to overflowing cesspits. You pass one of those wells on your way to work, the water cloudy and rank, and you keep walking because you know better. Or maybe you're a street vendor, flogging pies in a market near the Thames. Nobody's buying because the stench has killed everyone's appetite. You're shouting hot pies, fresh as can be, but it's a lie. The air's so foul your pies are starting to taste like sewage. A customer stumbles up, looking like he's about to keel over. "You all right, guys?" you ask, but he just mutters about the foul air and shuffles off. You glance at the river, where a dead sheep's floating by, its wool clumped with muck. Theft flies are a black cloud, and you're starting to think this city's cursed. The newspapers are all over it, by the way. You nick a copy of Punch from a stall, and they're calling the Thames the monster nuisance, with cartoons of Father Thames as a skeletal figure, ready to strangle London. The Times is banging on about pestilential exhalations, and you're nodding along because it feels like the end of days. You're no scientist, but you know thy stench is more than just gross, it's deadly. You've seen the bodies carted off, the funerals clogging the streets. The miasma theory's still floating around, saying bad smells cause disease, and while Snow's trying to set them straight, nobody's listening. All you know is you're breathing poison, and it's killing you one whiff at a time. You're starting to feel like London's a lost cause, guys. The city's grinding to a halt, shops closing, markets empty, people too sick to work. You're dodging horse dung and human waste, trying to hold your breath, but it's no use. The great stink's got you in its grip, and it's not letting go. But here's the thing, this mess didn't happen by accident. It's years of neglect, of toffs ignoring the problem while the city grew out of control. And it's about to get personal for them because the stink's creeping into Parliament itself. Stick around, guys, things are about to get proper interesting. You're still a Londoner in the summer of 1858, guys, and the great stink has got London in a chokehold. The River Thames is a steaming sewer, pumping out a stench that could drop a rhino, and you're just trying to make it through the day without heaving your guts out. Up until now, the posh bastards in Parliament have been happy to ignore the filth, letting the poor choke while they sip tea in their fancy chambers. But now, now the stinks invaded their precious Westminster, and suddenly it's a bloody crisis. This is history served raw, like a kick to the shins, full of filth and a few choice fucks to keep it real. Let's see how the toffs handle a taste of their own neglect. Picture the Palace of Westminster, all Gothic spires and smug grandeur, sitting right on the Thames' slimy banks. It's June 1858, hotter than a curry fart in a sauna, 30 degrees Celsius, 90 Fahrenheit for you Yanks, and the MPs inside are droning on about taxes or colonies or whatever keeps their egos inflated. But there's a problem. The windows are open because it's too damn hot to keep them shut, and the stench from the river's pouring in like a gate crasher at a wedding. It's not just a whiff, it's a full-on assault, a stench so vile it could make a skunk cry. The air's thick with the smell of rotting shit, dead fish, and industrial sludge, seeping into every corner of Parliament. The MPs are gagging, their eyes watering, their fancy speeches cut short by coughing fits. You're outside maybe a street sweeper clearing horse dung off the roads near Westminster, and you can't help but grin. About time you lot got a sniff of our world, guys, you mutter, leaning on your broom as you watch the chaos. Inside, it's a proper shit show. They tried soaking the curtains in lime chloride, some chemical nonsense supposed to kill the smell, but all it does is make the place reek like a public loo after a bleach bomb. Picture it, these toffs in their tailcoats, clutching scented handkerchiefs like they're at a bloody opera, but no amount of lavender's saving them from this. Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli, curly-haired git with a knack for drama, stands up to speak, but he's practically green, choking on his own words. He calls the Thames a Stygian pool reeking with ineffable and unbearable horror. Ineffable. Bollocks, Bennett's just a river of shit, and you wankers let it get this way. You're sweeping the street, overhearing clerks gossip about Disraeli storming out of a session, muttering about the pestilential fog. You laugh, but it's a bitter one. Where was all this outrage when the slums were drowning in this crap? Let's say you're a clerk now, scurrying through Westminster's halls with a stack of papers for some MP. The air inside's no better than outside. It's like the stench has claws, digging into every room. You pass a group of politicians, their faces buried in silk cloths, looking like they're about to faint. One of them, some lord with a monocle, snaps at you to close a window, but you just shrug. Won't help, guys, you say, dodging his glare. The windows are the least of their problems. The whole building's marinating in the Thames stink. You overhear them talking about adjourning Parliament, maybe moving to some countryside manor where the air doesn't taste like death. Typical toffs run away when it gets tough. Meanwhile, you're stuck here, delivering their bloody papers, breathing the same poison as everyone else. The newspapers are eating this up, and you're loving it. You nick a copy of Punch from a newsboy, and they're calling the Thames the monster nuisance, with cartoons of Father Thames as a skeletal grim reaper, rising from the muck to choke the city. The Illustrated London News is banging on about pestilential exhalations threatening to kill us all, and you're nodding along because it feels like the apocalypse. You're at a pub near the river trying to down a pint, but the smell's so bad it's curdling the ale. The landlord's muttering about business being down, and you can't blame him. Who wants to drink when the air tastes like arse? You glance at the Thames outside, where a dead sheep's floating by, its wool clumped with muck. The flies are a black cloud, buzzing like a warning siren. It's not just Parliament feeling the heat, everyone's suffering. You're back on the streets, maybe a market trader now, flogging apples in a square near Covent Garden. Nobody's buying because the stench has killed appetite stone dead. You're shouting, fresh fruit, best in London. But it's a lie, the air's so foul your apples are starting to taste like sewage. A customer stumbles up, looking like he's about to keel over. You all right, guys, you ask, but he just mutters about the foul air and shuffles off. You see a kid playing near a drain, poking at something slimy with a stick. Oi, get away from that, you yell, but he's already running off, laughing, oblivious to the cholera lurking in every drop. Even the Queen's not immune, and that's when you know it's bad. Victoria, Her Majesty herself, tries a publicity stunt, a boat ride on the Thames to show she's with the people. You're near the riverbank, maybe hauling crates as a docker, when you see her royal barge glide by. 2 minutes in, she's green as a lime, waving her fan like it'll save her, then ordering her rowers to turn back. You can't help but chuckle. If the Queen's gagging, what chance do the rest of us have, guys? You're sweating buckets, the stench burning your lungs, and you're wondering why you didn't flee to the countryside when you had the chance. The real sting. This isn't just about the smell, it's a death sentence. Cholera's tearing through the city, especially in the slums where people drink from wells next to leaking cesspits. You've seen the bodies carted off, the funerals clogging the streets. Jon Snow, that doctor who's not from Game of Thrones, proved years ago that cholera's in the water, but the bigwigs are still banging on about miasma-bed air-causing disease. You're no scientist, but you know this stench is killing people, one breath at a time. You pass a pump in a slum alley, the water cloudy and rank, and you keep walking because you've heard the stories. Whole families gone in a week, kids dead from a single sip. The city's falling apart, guys. Businesses are shutting down, nobody's shopping when the air's this foul. Courts are adjourning because judges can't think through the nausea. The stock exchange is wobbling, traders too sick to trade. You're starting to wonder if London's done for. Will it just choke on its own filth and die? But here's where it gets good. Parliament's had enough. The stink's in their house now, and they can't ignore it anymore. In June 1858, they passed the Metropolis Management Amendment Act in record time, 18 days, faster than a modern government approves a bloody coffee break. They're throwing money at the problem, desperate to save their own skins. You're outside Westminster, sweeping or hauling or just watching the chaos when you hear the news. They're calling in Joseph Bazalgette, this engineering legend who's like the Victorian version of a no-nonsense builder. You don't know it yet, but this bloke's about to change everything. He's got a plan to build a massive sewer system, pipes to carry the city's waste away before it hits the Thames. Your skeptical sounds like a pipe dream, pun intended, but there's a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, London can crawl out of this shithole. For now, though, you're still stuck in the stink. You're back at the pub swapping stories with other workers, all of you gagging between sips. If this Basil jet pulls it off, I'll kiss the bloody Thames. One bloke slurs and you laugh because you get it. The city's desperate for a win and you're praying this is it. The great stink's got London on its knees, but the fight's not over. Stick with me, guys. Basil jet's about to enter the ring and it's going to be a hell of a show. You're still a Londoner in 1858, guys, and the great stink has turned your city into a reeking hellhole. The River Thames is a toxic sewer, pumping out a stench that could floor a buffalo, and you're just trying to survive another day without puking your guts out. Parliament's finally woken up, their posh noses assaulted by the same filth you've been choking on for months. They've passed their fancy act, and now it's time to actually do something about this shit show. Enter Joseph Bazalgette, the engineering legend who's about to take on the Thames and its mountain of crap. This is history served raw, like a punch to the jaw, full of filth and a few choice fucks to keep it real. Let's see how Thigh's bloke plans to save London from drowning in its own waste. You're slogging through the streets, the air thick with the Thames stench, rotten eggs, dead fish, and a whiff of pure despair. Maybe you're a cabbie dodging horse dung while your passengers gag, or a washerwoman scrubbing linens in water that's more sludge than river. Either way, you're cursing the city with every breath. But there's a buzz in the air, a whisper of hope. You hear talk of Bazalgette, this engineer who's not here for the applause. He's here to get shit done, literally. His plan, build a massive sewer system to intercept all the waste before it hits the Thames. We're talking 1,100 miles of pipes, pumping stations that look like Gothic castles, and embankments to tame the river. It's the kind of project that makes modern megaprojects look like a kid's sandcastle. Let's say you're a laborer now, looking for work to feed your family. You hear about this big sewer job starting up, and you're desperate to sign on anything to get out of these stench-soaked streets. You head to a site near the river, where Bazalgette's team is already digging. The ground's a mess mud, broken cobbles, and the ever-present smell of the Thames, like a slap you can't dodge. But there's a spark here, a sense that something's finally happening. You see Bazalgette himself, striding around in a top hat, barking orders like a general in a war against shit. He's not some posh twat sitting in an office, he's out here, sleeves rolled up, making sure this gets done right. You respect that, guys, because you know what it's like to work through the stink. The scale of this project is bloody mental. Bazalgette's crew is building main sewers that run parallel to the Thames, intercepting the smaller pipes from homes and businesses. These sewers will carry the waste miles away, to outfalls east of the city, where it can be dumped without poisoning everyone. Bazalgette's not messing about. He designs the pipes to be twice as big as needed, because he knows London's only going to get bigger. Smart bastard, like the Victorian version of a builder woke truly gives a damn. You're at the site watching them lay these massive brick tunnels, and you're gobsmacked. It's like building a city underground, all to handle the shit the toffs ignored for years. You get hired as a navvy, one of thousands of workers digging trenches through London's crowded streets. It's backbreaking work shoveling through clay and rubble, dodging collapsing walls and sudden floods. The pay's decent, but the conditions are hell. You're up to your knees in muck, and the smell's no better down here than it is up top. One day you hit a pocket of gas from a leaking cesspit, and the stench knocks you flat like a punch from a drunk. Fucking hell, you gasp, leaning on your shovel, but you keep going. Rent's due and this job's your lifeline. You've seen mates go down trenches caving in, lads crushed under a ton of earth. You know this work could kill you, but Bazalgette's vision is infectious. He's promising a cleaner city, a Thames that doesn't make you want to die every time you breathe. Let's talk about the pumping stations, because these are the unsung heroes of the operation. Places like Crossness and Abbey Mills aren't just functional, they're bloody beautiful. Think ironwork arches, ornate brickwork like castles built to handle shit. You're hauling bricks to Crossness one day, you're back screaming, and you're in awe. This place is pumping millions of gallons of sewage out of London, but it looks like something a king would live in. You overhear a foreman say it's got chandeliers inside chandeliers for a shit factory. Bazalgette's not just solving a problem, he's making a statement. This is Victorian engineering at its peak, grit, guts, and a touch of swagger. Back in the streets, the stink's still king. You're digging near the Thames one day, and a gust of wind brings the full force of the river's stench. You gag, your eyes streaming, and you wonder if this job's worth it. But then you see a stretch of new pipe going in, gleaming and solid, ready to carry the city's waste away. It's a small victory, but it keeps you going. You hear Bazalgette's promising the main sewers will be done by 1865, and you dare to imagine a London where you can breathe without wanting to die. You're not there yet, guys. The river's still a brown sludge, with dead fish and worse floating by, but there's a light at the end of this shitty tunnel. The newspapers are starting to catch on, and you're eating it up. You nick a copy of the Times from a stall, and they're talking about Bazalgette's plan, calling it a monumental undertaking. For once, they're not just whining about the stink, they're seeing a way out. You're at the pub, swapping stories with other navvies, all of you covered in mud and reeking of the Thames. If this works, I'll kiss the bloody river, one bloke slurs, and you laugh because you get it. The city's desperate for a win, and you're starting to believe Bazalgette might pull it off. But it's not all hope and glory. The work's dangerous as hell. You've seen mates die crushed in trench collapses, swept away in floods, or taken by cholera from the water you're all wading through. You're at a site near the embankment when a wall gives way, and you barely scramble out before it buries you. Fuck this, you mutter, but you pick up your shovel and keep going. Bazalgette's out there too, checking plans, shouting at foremen, and you respect him for it. He's not just some toff with a blueprint. He's in the muck with you, fighting the same fight. The toffs, though, they're still moaning. You overhear them at the pub, griping about the cost pound 4 million, a fortune that could buy a small country. It's funded by taxes, which means you, the working stiff, are footing the bill while they whine over their port in Mayfair. Sound familiar? It's like today's billionaires dodging taxes while the rest of us clean up their mess. But you see the bigger picture. This isn't just about cleaning the river, it's about saving lives. You've seen the cholera deaths, the kids dying from a sip of bad water. If Bazalgette's sewers can stop that, it's worth every penny. You're back at the site hauling bricks, your muscles aching but your head buzzing with hope. The Thames is still a stinking nightmare, but you can feel the tide turning. Bazalgette's not just building pipes, he's building a future. You're part of it, guys, even if your back's screaming and your hands are raw. The Great Stink's got London on its knees, but Bazalgette's about to fight back. Stick with me, this is where the real work begins. You're a Londoner in the late 1850s, guys, and the Great Stink is still making the city a reeking hellhole. The River Thames is a toxic sewer, its stench a mix of rotten eggs, dead fish, and pure despair that could knock a mule flat. But there's hope on the horizon, Joseph. Bazalgette's massive sewer project is underway, and it's promising to save London from drowning in its own crap. You're in the thick of it, working to make this happen, but let's not kid ourselves, this ain't no fairy tale. Building a new London comes with a price, and it's paid in blood, sweat, and a shit ton of misery. This is history served raw, like a kick in the teeth, full of filth and a few choice fucks to keep it real. Let's dig into the gritty reality of getting this done. You're a navvy now, one of thousands of workers turning Bazalgette's blueprints into reality. You're up at dawn, shovel in hand, digging trenches through London's crowded streets. The city's still a functioning madhouse, carts rattling by, hawkers shouting, kids stealing apples from stalls, so you're dodging traffic while you work. The ground's a nightmare of clay, rubble, and old pipes, and every spadeful feels like it's fighting you back. Sometimes you hit a pocket of gas from a leaking cesspit, and the stench knocks you flat, like a drunk's punch at closing time. Fucking hell, you gasp, leaning on your shovel, but you keep digging. Rent's due, and this job's your lifeline, even if it's killing you. The work's dangerous as hell. Trenches collapse without warning, burying lads alive. You've seen it happen. A mate's there 1 minute, gone the next, crushed under a ton of earth. You were at a site near the Thames when a wall gave way, and you barely scrambled out before it buried you. Fuck this, you mutter, heart pounding, but you pick up your shovel and keep going. Floods are another killer. The Thames doesn't take kindly to being tamed, and a burst pipe can turn your trench into a muddy grave. You've lost count of the mates who have gone down with fever, their bodies carted off like so much rubbish. Cholera's still lurking, and you're wading through the same water that's killing people in the slums. Every day's a gamble, guys, and you're not sure you'll make it out alive. The scale of Bazalgette's project is bloody insane. His crew is laying down 1,100 miles of sewers, enough to stretch from London to bloody Scotland. They're using millions of bricks, poured concrete, and iron pipes so big you could crawl through them. You're hauling materials all day, your back screaming, your hands blistered raw. The pumping stations like Crossness and Abbey Mills are going up too, and you're in awe of the sheer ambition. You're at Crossness one day, lugging bricks for the builders, and you're gobsmacked. This place is pumping millions of gallons of sewage out of London, but it's got ironwork arches and ornate brickwork like a bloody palace. You overhear a foreman talking about chandeliers inside chandeliers for a shit factory. Bazalgette's not just building sewers, he's building monuments to human stubbornness. But who's paying for this? Not the toffs, not directly. Oh, they're moaning all right. You hear them at the pub, griping about the cost in letters to the Times, whining about excessive expenditure like they're not the ones who let the city rot in the first place. The bill's £4 million, a fortune back then, enough to buy a small country. It's funded by taxes, which means you, the working stiff, are footing the bill while some lord in Mayfair grumbles over his port. Sound familiar? It's like today's billionaires dodging climate taxes while the rest of us drown in their mess. You're sweating your arse off in a trench, and the toffs are sipping tea, complaining about their wallets. Typical guys, you're not alone in the struggle. Thousands of navvies are out here, Irish immigrants, country lads, even women hauling bricks for pennies. You share a pint with them at the end of the day, swapping stories of near misses and cursing the bosses. One bloke, an Irishman with a scar across his cheek, tells you about a mate who drowned in a flooded trench last week. Bastard foreman didn't even stop work, he spits, and you nod because you've seen it too. But there's a pride in it despite the misery. You're building something that'll outlast you, something that'll save lives. Bazalgette's a hard taskmaster, but he's out here with you, checking plans, shouting at foremen. You respect him. He's not some armchair engineer. He's in the muck with the rest of you. Back in the city, the stink's still king. You're digging near the Thames one day, and a gust of wind brings the full force of the river's stentrant eggs, dead fish, and a whiff of death. You gag, your eyes streaming, and you wonder if this job's worth it. But then you see a stretch of new pipe going in, gleaming and solid, ready to carry the city's waste away. It's a small victory, but it keeps you going. You hear Bazalgette's promising the main sewers will be done by 1865, and you dare to imagine a London where you can breathe without wanting to die. The river's still a brown nightmare, with dead fish and worse floating by, but there's a flicker of hope. The newspapers are starting to catch on. You nick a copy of the Times from a stall, and they're talking about Bazalgette's plan, calling it a triumph of engineering. For once, they're not just whining about the stink, they're seeing a way out. You're at the pub swapping stories with other navvies, all of you covered in mud and reeking of the Thames. If this works, I'll kiss the bloody river. One bloke slurs and you laugh because you get it. The city's desperate for a win and you're starting to believe Bazalgette might pull it off. But it's not all rosy. The work's relentless and the dangers don't let up. You're at a site near the embankment when a pipe bursts, flooding the trench with sewage. You scramble out, soaked and cursing, but a lad next to you isn't so lucky. He's pulled out blue and gasping. "Fuck this city," you mutter, but you keep going because what else can you do? Bazalgette's out there, checking the damage, his face grim but focused. You overhear him talking about the Victoria Embankment, a massive wall of granite and brick to hide the sewers and tame the river. It's a beast of a project, and you're part of it, even if it's breaking you. The toffs keep whining about the cost, but you see the bigger picture. This isn't just about cleaning the river, it's about stopping the cholera that's killing kids in the slums. You've seen the funerals, heard the stories of families wiped out by a single sip of bad water. Jon Snow, that doctor, not the Game of Thrones one, proved it's the water, not the air, but the bigwigs are slow to catch up. You're no scientist, but you know this project could save lives. Every brick you haul, every trench you dig, is a step toward a city that doesn't stink of death. You're back at the site, your muscles aching, your hands raw, but there's a fire in you. Bazalgette's not just building pipes, he's building a future. You're part of it, guys, even if the stench is still your daily companion. The great stink's got London on its knees, but the fight's on and you're in the thick of it. Stick with me, this is where the real grind pays off. You're a Londoner now, guys, in the early 1860s, and the great stink of 1858 is starting to feel like a bad dream, when you barely survived. The River Thames is still a working river, not exactly sparkling, but it's no longer the steaming sewer that made you gag with every breath. Joseph Bazalgette's sewer system is coming online, piece by backbreaking piece, and the city's starting to claw its way out of the shit pit. You're still in the thick of it, maybe a navvy who helped build this miracle, or just a poor sod trying to live through the change. This is history served raw, like a slug of cheap whiskey, full of filth and a few choice fucks to keep it real. Let's see how London starts to breathe again. Fast forward from the hell of 58, and you're standing on the Victoria Embankment, one of Bazalgette's big ideas to tame the Thames. It's a massive wall of granite and brick, narrowing the river and hiding the new sewers underneath. You're hauling stones for the builders, your muscles aching from years of this brutal work, but you can see the difference. The river's banks aren't the slimy death traps they used to be. The tide still brings up some nasty surprises, dead fish, the odd shoe, a faint whiff of the old stench, but it's not the apocalyptic pong of 58. You take a deep breath, and for the first time in years, you don't immediately regret it. Bloody hell, is this what fresh air feels like? You mutter, half laughing because you'd almost forgot. The sewers are doing their job, guys. Instead of dumping straight into the Thames, the city's waste is now carried east to outfalls like Beckton and Crossness, miles away from the heart of London. You've been to Crossness, shit, what a place. You were there hauling bricks when they fired up the engines, massive steam-powered beasts that pump millions of gallons of sewage out of the city. The noise was deafening, like a dragon waking up, but it was a beautiful sound progress, guys. You cheered with the other workers, your ears ringing, your hands raw from clapping. The place itself is a stunner ironwork arches, ornate brickwork, like a cathedral for crap. Ya overheard a foreman say it's got chandeliers inside chandeliers for a shit factory. Bazalgette's not just cleaning the city, he's showing off and you're here for it. The city's feeling the change. Cholera cases are dropping and the slums aren't the death traps they used to be. You're no doctor, but you know clean water's a game changer. People aren't drinking from pumps tainted by leaking cesspits anymore. You pass a well in Whitechapel, and the water's clear for once, not cloudy with the Thames poison. You've seen the funerals slow down, the body carts less frequent. The newspapers, which spent years bitching about the stink, are now singing Bazalgette's praises. You nick a copy of the Times from a stall, and they're calling him a genius of sanitation. You nod along because you've seen the blood and sweat that went into this. You were there, digging trenches, dodging collapses, fighting through the stench. Let's say you're still a navvy, working on the final stretch of the embankment. The Thames is looking stronger, cleaner, like a boxer back from a beating. You're laying bricks, your back screaming, but there's a pride in it. You're building something that'll outlast you, something that's saving lives. You see kids playing near the new stone wall, fishing with sticks, and for once they're not pulling up anything that'll haunt your nightmares. You smile, thinking of that drunk in the pub years ago who swore he'd kiss the Thames if Bazalgette pulled it off. You're not quite ready to pucker up, but you're damn grateful, guys. The work's not done, mind you. Some of the smaller sewers are still years from completion, and the Thames isn't exactly a crystal stream. You're walking along the embankment one evening, the sun setting over a river that's starting to look like a river again. There's still a faint whiff of muck, but it's nothing like the gut punch of 58. You hear a kid laugh, splashing in the shallows, and you don't yell at him to get away, not this time. The city's changing, and you're part of it, even if your hands are calloused and your back's knackered. But let's talk about the cost, because it still stings. The project's £4 million and counting, a fortune that's coming out of taxes, your taxes, guys. The toffs are still moaning, writing snotty letters to the Times about extravagant spending, like they're not the ones who let the city rot in the first place. You're at the pub, overhearing some lord's lackey griping about the bill over a glass of port, and you want to deck him. You're the one who's been digging trenches, risking your neck, while he sips his fancy booze. It's like today's billionaires whining about green energy costs while the planet chokes same old dickhead move. You're not alone in this fight. Thousands of navvies are out here, Irish immigrants, country lads, women hauling bricks for pennies. You share a pint with them after a long day, swapping stories of close calls. One bloke, a Scotsman with a limp from a trench collapse, tells you about a mate who died when a pipe burst, drowning in sewage. Bastard foreman didn't even stop work. He spits, and you nod because you've seen it too. But there's a camaraderie in the grind, a sense that you're all in this together. You're building a future, even if it's breaking you in the process. Bazalgette's the real hero, though, and you respect the hell out of him. You see him at the site checking plans, shouting at foremen, his face grim but focused. He's not some toff with a blueprint. He's out here, knee-deep in the muck with you. You overhear him talking about the embankment, how it'll not just hide the sewers but make the city stronger, prouder. It's a vision, and you're buying into it, even if your body's screaming for a rest. You're at Abbey Mills one day, another pumping station that's a bloody work of art, and you marvel at the ironwork, the sheer scale of it. This isn't just about moving shit, it's about proving London can rise above its own mess. The city's starting to feel different. You're walking through Covent Garden and the market's buzzing again. People are buying apples, pies, even fish without gagging. The air's not perfect, but it's not trying to kill you anymore. You hear a street vendor shouting, "Fresh fish from the Thames," and you laugh because that's still a stretch, but it's progress. You're at the pub swapping stories with other workers, and there's a lightness you haven't felt in years. Bazalgette's done it, one bloke says, raising his pint. You clink glasses because you know it's true. The man's a bloody legend, and you're proud to have been part of it, even if your back's still complaining. But it's not all smooth sailing. The Thames still has its bad days, and the slums are still rough. You pass a tenement where a family's mourning. A kid lost to cholera before the sewers could save them. It's a reminder that this fight's not over, but it's winnable. Bazalgette's sewers are built to last, designed for a city that'll keep growing. You hear talk of 10 million people one day, and you think, bloody hell, good thing those pipes are big. The Great Stink's becoming a memory, guys, but it's left its mark. You're part of the fix, and that's something to hold on to. Stick with me, this tale's heading for a proper finish. You're a Londoner in 1865, guys, and the Great Stink of 1858 is fading into a bad memory, like a hangover you barely survived. The River Thames isn't perfect. It's still a working river, with ships and muck and the occasional whiff of trouble, but it's no longer the steaming sewer that made you gag with every breath. Joseph Bazalgette's sewers are up and running, and London's a different city, clawing its way out of the shit pit. You're still here, maybe a navvy who helped build this miracle, or just a poor sod who lived through the worst of it. This is history served raw, like a slug of cheap gin, full of filth and a few choice fucks to keep it real. Let's see what this victory means and how it's left its mark on you in the city. You're standing on the Victoria Embankment, watching the Thames flow. It's cleaner, stronger, like a fighter back from a brutal match. The sewers are doing their job, whisking the city's waste away to outfalls east of London, far from the heart of the city. You're not gagging anymore, and that's a bloody miracle. You take a deep breath, and it's not exactly roses, but it's a far cry from the gut punch of 58. Fucking hell, we did it, you mutter, half smiling, because you were part of this, whether you were digging trenches or just surviving the stink. The river's banks are tamed by Bazalgette's embankments, granite and brick walls hiding the sewers that saved the city. You see kids playing near the water, fishing with sticks, and for once they're not pulling up anything that'll haunt your nightmares. The pumping stations are the real stars, though. You've been to Crossness, that beast of a place where massive steam engines pump millions of gallons of sewage out of London. You were there when they fired it up, the noise like a dragon roaring, and you cheered with the other workers, your hands raw from clapping. It's not just functional, it's a bloody work of art, with ironwork arches and ornate brickwork like a palace for shit. You overheard a toff gawping about chandeliers inside chandeliers for a crap factory. Abbey Mills is just as grand, another monument to Bazalgette's vision. You're walking past it one day, hauling supplies for the final touches, and you're in awe. This isn't just about moving waste, it's about proving humans can beat their own mess. The city's changed, guys. Cholera's not the killer it was. You pass a well in Whitecapel and the water's clear, not cloudy with the Thames poison. The slums are still rough, but they're not death traps anymore. You've seen the body carts slow down, the funerals less frequent. The newspapers, which spent years screaming about the stink, are now calling Bazalgette a hero. You nick a copy of the Times from a stall, and they're hailing him as the savior of London. You nod along because you know the blood and sweat that went into this. You were there, digging trenches, dodging collapses, fighting through the stench. You've lost mates to this project, crushed in cave-ins, drowned in floods, taken by cholera before the sewers could save them. But you made it, and so did London. Let's say you're still a navvy, finishing up the embankment. Your back's knackered, your hands calloused, but there's a pride in it. You're laying the last stones, watching the Thames flow stronger, cleaner. You hear a vendor shouting, "Fresh fish from the Thames," and you laugh because it's not a total lie anymore. The river's not perfect, but it's not trying to kill you. You're at the pub later, swapping stories with other workers, all of you covered in mud but grinning. "Bazalgette's done it," one bloke says, raising his pint. You clink glasses because you know it's true. The man's a bloody legend, and you're proud to have been part of it, even if your body's screaming for a rest. Bazalgette's the hero of the hour, and they knight him, Sir Joseph, the shit saver. You see his name in the papers, his stern face staring out, and you raise a glass to him at the pub. His sewers are the backbone of modern London, built to last for a city that's only going to grow. You hear talk of 10 million people one day, and you think, bloody hell, good thing those pipes are big. The pumping stations at Crossness and Abbey Mills are still going strong, still beautiful proof that humans can build something epic even when the job's dirty. You've heard tourists, yeah, even now coming to gawp at the engineering like it's the bloody pyramids. But let's not get too misty-eyed. The Great Stink was a wake-up call, a reminder that ignoring problems doesn't make them go away. The toffs in Parliament only acted when the stench hit their own doorstep, and that's a lesson that still stings. You think of today's world politicians dodging big issues like they're playing a game of whack-a-mole. Climate change, inequality, all that jazz, it's the same old story. The Great Stink showed what happens when you let things fester, but it also showed what a few stubborn bastards can do when they roll up their sleeves. Bazalgette's sewers are still under London today, holding up as the city's hit 10 million people, just like he predicted. The Thames is a proper river again, not a sewer. You're back at the pub now, swapping stories with your mates. The Great Stink's a legend, a tale you tell to scare the young uns. You think your life's tough, you say, leaning over your pint. Try living in a city where the air could kill you. They laugh, but you know it's true. You survived the worst smell in history, and you helped build the fix. That's something to be proud of, even if your back's still complaining. You're walking along the embankment one evening, the sun setting over a Thames that's alive again. There's a kid fishing, laughing, and you don't yell at him to stop. You smile because this is what you fought for, a city that doesn't stink of death. The cost still stings, mind you. Those £4 million came from taxes, your taxes, guys. The toffs are still griping, even as they stroll along the shiny new embankment, acting like they saved the day. You want to deck them, but you let it go. You see the bigger picture. This was about saving lives, stopping the cholera that killed kids in the slums. You've seen the funerals slow, the wells clear up. Jon Snow, that doctor, not the Game of Thrones one, proved it was the water, and Bazalgette made it happen. You're no scientist, but you know this city's alive because of it. You're part of something bigger, guys. You dug the trenches, paid the taxes, lived through the stink. The Great Stink was a disaster, but it birthed a miracle. Bazalgette's sewers are London's backbone, and you helped lay it. You're at the pub raising a glass to the city, to Bazalgette, to the fight you won. So what's the worst smell you've ever survived? Festival bog, mate's fridge after a blackout. Drop it in the comments, guys, and let's hear your tales. This story's done, but the stench lingers. Cheers for sticking with it.